Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Brianna with the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce, and today we're going to be hosting a live webinar to talk about COVID relief opportunities for small businesses. As you can see, we've got a powerhouse team here of presenters, and we're going to start with the SBDC, and then Tyler's going to come back a little bit later to talk about another program. So Tyler, give everyone a wave. We'll see you in just a little bit. A couple of quick housekeeping items. You can leave comments and questions in the chat at any time. We're going to talk about all relief opportunities before we start to address those questions. So I'll be keeping track of them, and then we'll have plenty of time to do that at the end. So with that said, Janice, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to get into some introductions, and then you and Julie can take it from here.
Great. Thank you very much for including us in this, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. My name is Janice Mueller, and I am the Regional Director for the I-69 Trade Corridor region, which consists of 7 counties: Shiawassee, Genesee, Lapeer, St. Clair, Sanilac, Tuscola, and Huron. So this presentation is part of our statewide services. These are funded in part by the SBA and the MEDC at the state level. It's a national program, but we are located in the state and cover all counties in the state. So we have a 10 or 11 regional centers right now. And I am very pleased to announce that we have Julie Oldham here. She is a master counselor. She works with growth team clients, but she has jumped into all things PPP and EIDL. And so I would love to turn it over to Julie Oldham and let her manage you with expertise. I would caution that as this is a federal program, rules are still being developed, policies and procedures are still being developed. There is a massive effort to pump out information as quickly as possible, but things are subject to change. So the information you're going to hear is exactly what we know at 2:02 p.m. on the 14th of January. At 2:05, this may change, so be patient. And remember, there's a lot of information. Don't get glaze-eyed. Take what you can. The SBDC is here to support you. There is no fee for our services. We provide counseling, we provide training, and we work with you and can get you the facilitation you need to get started through the programs. So with nothing else, here's Julie.
Well, thank you, Janice. Thank you, Brianne and Tyler, and for having us today. And thank you, all the businesses and organizations that are out on the attending today. I really appreciate your time and effort, and also all your struggles and challenges throughout this pandemic period. So again, today we're going to do just an overview of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, or also CAA. We'll deal with the PPP, the Payroll Program Protection Act, and EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So next slide, please. So what happened? Congress passed a bill, 5,593 pages. Did I say 5,593 pages? That included 284.5 billion in funding. So needless to say, all we're covering today is the PPP 1, 2, and the EIDL. It was approved by Congress on December 21st, signed by the President December 27th. And needless to say, changes are happening, as Janice said. Applications started Monday, and I just received news about an hour ago, which I'll update you momentarily on how the applications are going to be accepted. So get prepared now. Next slide. So who's eligible for this act? Let's just do a summary, and then we'll go into depth in a few more slides. So we have businesses, sole proprietors, self-employed individuals, and nonprofits, including churches, faith-based institutions, chambers, and visitors bureaus. Again, provided that they have 300 or fewer employees and did not receive 15% of receipts from lobbying. And then the NAICS code of North American Industry Classification 72, which is the hospitality areas. So for the first recipients, 300 and fewer employees have full use of amount of the PPP loan if you had the first loan, and before you receive the second loan or the second draw. Must show that you have 25% reduction in gross seats, which I'll explain and define next slide. Not yet, but in 2020 compared to the quarter in 2019. And it's a 3-month period calendar quarter, not a fiscal or 3-month period. And I'll also talk a little bit more about the annual reporting versus quarterly. So I would suggest that you get bank ready now. Run your reports so that when you can get to the banks and start applying for the forms, which we'll talk about momentarily as well. Next slide, please. So what are gross receipts? You got sales of your product or service, your interest, dividends, rents, royalties, fees, commissions, reduced by returns and allowances. Please do not include your PPP or your EIDL in the gross receipts comparison from 2019 to 2020. I get that question from my clients. Next slide. So what are the options? Now, this just happened on January 6th by the interim final rule, or sometimes referred to as IFR. Now, this is a rule that the SBA has, similar to like the taxes. Yeah, IRS has their rules, accounting has their rules. Well, the SBA has their interim final rules. So they thought, okay, let's try to help small businesses out because not all small businesses will report quarterly. So they said, okay, let's do total annual receipts in 2020 to 2019. So in essence, if you don't have quarterly, you can show a 25% decline in an annual basis. Now, there's some discussion as to, is it tax reform? Some of the banks are allowing sales receipts. So some are asking, okay, QuickBooks reports are fine. So I would certainly touch base with your business banker or your bank to make sure that you are submitting what they need. Next slide, please. So again, it's more or less allowed for first-time borrowers that did not receive the PPP loan. You have 500 and fewer employees, which is different than the 300 I just talked about, have to be in operation since February 15th of 2020. The bill allows that if you returned all or part of your loan, you're able to reapply for the maximum amount. So some returned it because they didn't want it, but again, if you need it now, you can certainly go back to your bank and reapply. And you did not receive a shuttered venue operator grant. What's an operator grant? It's for the museums and the theaters and all that have been shut down by the state. I get a lot of questions on that. Ultimately, it will come out. We have not heard anything at this point in time. It will be administered by the SBA and not the banks. Next slide, please. So the expanded eligibility for 501c6 organizations. The first PPP was 501c3s. Now they're allowed the C6s, which now includes the business leagues, Chamber of Commerce, real estate, and of course, got to keep everybody sports happy, the football leagues. Now, the organization does not receive more than 15% of the receipts from lobbying activities, do not comprise more than 15% of the total activities. So if you have memberships, and the majority of your revenues are coming in are for lobbying, then you may not be eligible. So you must check on that as well. There is question as to what constitutes lobbying activities, and we're all waiting guidance on that. Next slide, please. Okay, so if those have had the first loan, that you know that you had your monthly payroll costs, your average, so you take your payroll cost divided by 12 times 2.5 to determine what your loan amount would be. So this time around, the cap is 2 million, not 10 million, but you're using your 2019 figures. Okay, so for those that are in the hard hit industries, or the hospitality, you're allowed 3.5 times the average total monthly costs. So that's very helpful. So next slide, please. So that means that you'll have 40% more than your other industries. So let's take a look at the chart. Next click, please, to see which one is available. Okay, I don't know how much you can see that or not, but I'll read them. It's all the 72 for the NAICS North American Industry Classification Code is accommodation for food service, accommodation for hotels, casino hotels, bed and breakfasts, RV parks, rooming and boarding houses, special food services, food service contractors, caterers, food trucks or mobile food services, drinking places, restaurants and other eating places, full and limited service restaurants, cafeterias and snack and non-alcoholic beverage bars. Next slide, please. So for the second draw, they're calling this first draw and second draw. The first draw is for the first time that you've not had the PPP, but for the second draw, the eligible people are business concerns, not-for-profit organizations, housing cooperatives, veterans organizations, tribal business, self-employed, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and small agricultural cooperatives. And they have to have 3 requirements. One is not being more than 300 employees, has, next slide please, has or will use the full amount of the first PPP loan. You do not have to have it forgiven. I get that question all the time. It does not have to be forgiven, but you just have to have the intention and show that they tell the bank that you're going to use your first or draw of the PPP loan. So the second requirement, gross receipts of the first, second, or third, that with respect to the application submitted, will show that 25% reduction from the gross receipts. Now I'm getting questions on, is it accrual, is it cash? Use your tax return as guidance or get with your accountant to assist you on that. So number 3, for purposes above 25% reduction in gross receipts, borrowers that were not in business during the first, second, or third quarter of 2019, but were in business in the last quarter of 2019, can compare your first, second, or third quarters of 2020 to the fourth quarter of 2019. And if you're a seasonal business, you can do a 12-week period for like February 15th through February 15th of 2020. Again, it's a calendar quarter, not a 3-month fiscal period. Next slide, please. The second draw, if you were not in business, and believe it or not, there's a lot of businesses that did start up in 2020. You can compare your gross receipts to the second or third quarter of 2020 to the first quarter of 2020 to see if you're eligible. For not-for-profit entities, you can compare your gross receipts to the first, second, or third quarter of 2020 in the same quarter of 2019. Again, please, I don't know how much time you have until March 31st to start applying for this. I'll tell you that this week and next week, get with your banks, make sure you get everything ready to go to be able to apply. You don't know if you know the first time around the money got used up in a hurry, so we don't know what will happen this time around. Next slide, please. The nice thing about this now is allows you 8 weeks and now on as 24 weeks for the covered period. Those that had the first loan, is very, very strict on the 8-week, 24 period. So, I would certainly suggest doing a 24-week, because if anything happens and you don't have your FTEs or your number of employees, covered by 8 weeks, then you have longer to be able to achieve that, so you receive 100% forgiveness. So again, you want to make sure that, if you have any reduction in workforce, that maybe it's a safe harbor, maybe they couldn't come back to work because of being in a protected class or they have COVID, but just make sure that you have track of all your FTEs and all that as well. Next slide, please. So for the second draw, for those that had the first draw, it's pretty much the same situation as far as documentation. You're going to use the calendar year 2019 figures, and if the lender is the same, they should have all that information. So again, the only addition is that you show that you have the revenue decline of 25% and all your tax forms and bank statements and all that you are needed to apply. So the key thing on this one for loans of $150,000 or less, you may not need to show the amount for forgiveness, but when you apply for forgiveness, how many, like maybe next year or the end of this year, you are going to have all that documentation. So please do it now while it's fresh in your memory. Next slide, please. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go and complete all the information on the SBA form 2483 SD. SD stands for second draw borrower application form. And I'm going to show you that momentarily because I want you to Google it and get it ready to go. So when you apply for the bank, you're prepared and you know what the information is on that. So go ahead and click, please. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm not quite sure. Can you see that all right? But what you want to do is the 2483 SD, you want to make sure that it's the second draw borrower application form. It's circled in red. So you're going to check one of your tax entity, your sole proprietor, your partnership, S corp, so on and so forth. You're going to put your legal name. You're going to put your NAICS code, North American Industry Classification Code. If it's a not-for-profit, make sure you take a look at your 990 to find out what that number is. You're going to put your address, your EIN number, all your contact information. Here's your average monthly payroll. Is it 2.5 or 3.5 based on if you're hospitality? Now, I get this question all the time. Number of employees. The number of employees is as of today or whenever you're applying for this year. For 2021, not 2019, not 2020, but 2021. So the purpose of the loan, you're going to select all that. And then, your owner name, title, if you had ownership of 20% or more, they have to be listed here. And then I'm not going to go through these questions because it's quite small, but please make sure you read through these and get ready to go because you're doing certification on that as well. So next slide, please. Okay, this is like wonderful stuff. The forgiven PPP loans and expenses will be deductible for the CARES Act. That's the first PPP and the second PPP2. And I'll tell you, all the accountants, the bankers, attorneys, everybody was lobbying for this because it would have been very unfortunate if this didn't come through. The other nice thing is that Michigan rolling conformity with IRS. So Michigan return will also expenses and loans will be deductible. Now, if you're at a different state, please check with them because not all of them have the rolling conformity with the IRS. Next slide, please. And I tell you, this is great news because, again, we've been lobbying for this for so much that it worked out well. Okay, so if you're Chinese-owned entities, unfortunately, you're not available for a second loan, PPP. Next slide, please. So the next one is on the banks. Now, there's a whole area of the act that goes into this, but just know that you can't go across the bank. The banks are not, they're kind of shielded from any issues. It goes down to the borrower and your certification of these loans. I just want to let you know that. Next slide, please. Okay, so borrowers who received $150,000 or less will now have to submit a one-page application forgiveness, but all the same rules apply. So you have now this time the form 2483, and I would certainly Google it. You could say SBA form 2483, Google that, and then you're going to use this form to apply for the PPP loan with your eligible lender. Now, some of the lenders, if it's a larger bank, will have a portal, electronic portal on their website. Other smaller banks, you may have to do the document itself. So get with your bank to determine. And again, you're going to attest to the requirements, the loan amount, the employees, the estimated loan amount that's going to be spent on payroll. Please retain your records for 4 years of employment, 3 years for other. Just every penny that you're going to spend under the PPP-1 or PPP-2 document. I don't know if you're digital or hard copy, make a copy, scan it in. Just make sure that you have all the documentation for each loan, especially when you have to apply for forgiveness. Next to click, please, will bring up a form. And this is the form that's January 8th, 2020, and this is the 2483. Again, similar to the 2483D, SD, you'll see the same type of information here that you'll have to provide. So I would, again, Google that and make sure that you have all the information ready to go. Next click for the next form. I get a lot of questions on this. Like, I have a loan for $50,000. Can I go to the bank and get forgiveness? Of course you can, as long as your bank is accepting it. Numerous banks are, and I can't say that I've talked to any banker that has not not accepting application forms for $50,000 or less from the first PPP loan. Okay, if you want to Google it, it's SBA form 3508S, and that's for simple. 3508S for simple. Again, your legal name, business name, address, PPP loan number, PPP loan number. If you do not have that loan number, please call your bank. Your bank should have it. Put your loan amount is, your disbursement date, employees at the time of application, and then when you're doing the application for the forgiveness, which would be 2021. And then if you had an idle advance, you could put it there. And again, you're signing below, you're making the following representations and certifications on behalf of the borrower. Okay, the dollar amount. So again, I'm not going to go through all that, but please Google it and make sure that you understand and you're ready to go when you apply for these forgiveness. Oftentimes the banks, if you screw up, you only have one chance at it. Please make sure you do it correctly, practice ahead of time, put it into the portal, then you won't have to have, call the bank to say, I had a, issue, I didn't do it correctly. So please practice with it and make sure you have all that information ahead of time. Next slide, please. Okay, the nice thing is that they've expanded the amount of expenses that you're allowed to take for PPP-2. Also, you can use it for PPP-1. So payroll now is clarified to include group life, disability, vision, and or dental insurance. Again, before it was rent, covered secured loan interest, utilities, operating costs. Now this is added, including software, cloud computing, and accounting services. Additional is property damage for any problems that you had with vandalism or looting that wasn't covered by insurance. Essential supplier expenditures, if you had to modify your facility for the federal and safety guidelines along with PPP, all that you can use as forgiveness. Expenses. Next slide, please. Remember, as with the PPP-1, you must have 60-40, 60% payroll and 40% non-payroll costs to receive 100% forgiveness. The ideal candidate, which I talked to the other day, was a client who used 100% payroll. If you can do that, yes, you can. That's the best way to get 100% forgiveness. Can you add employees? Of course, that's exactly what it is. And then I get, but the state tells me it's closed. Can I keep my employees on unemployment and also do PPP? No. Please, I understand it. I get it. I know you don't want to pay employees for sitting out at home, but this is the whole intent of the Payroll Program Protection Act, right? It's to put them on your payroll and not on unemployment. Next slide, please. Okay, if you have any farmers in that, the Act doesn't include specific provisions that you can report your income on Schedule F for the PPP loan. And that's similar to the Schedule C for taxpayers. Next slide, please. I always get the question, how are banks getting paid? they are getting paid. Believe me, the first time around, they definitely got a chunk of change on this, and they're going to do it again. You can see loans of less than $50,000, less than 50% of the loan amount, or $2,500. So they do. Now, agent fees are also allowed, which banks can pay your accountants. Please, if some of your accountants maybe did not charge you for the first go around, they may charge you for the second go around, because it does take time and effort, and everybody needs to make a fair paycheck to pay their own bills. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to move on to the EIDL, different pronunciations, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So the first time around, it was just for working capital, and the website was a mess. Every 5 seconds it was changing. My clients are not happy campers, and it looks like that's again this time around. Some are telling us that it was open yesterday, now it's not open, it's the old EIDL application, because you are applying through the SBA or Treasury, the Small Business Administration or U.S. Treasury. You do not go through the bank with this, okay? So all I can say is hang in there. I don't know, read the news or contact us. We try to monitor this as fast and quickly as possible. As long as we know, we can pass that on to you. But the EIDL loan is a 3.75% loan for profit, 2.75 for not-for-profit loans with a 30-year amortization. Now, for those that have already received an EIDL loan, that the date of deposit, your interest accrues for 1 year. You have 1 year from the date of deposit to make the first payment. Please accrue the interest. For a lot of you that may already have loans coming up for March, April, May, you're going to have, in addition to your first payment, all the interest that you're going to have to pay as well. And please, again, keep records of every penny spent on the EIDL loan, because the SBA can request an audit, and you may, like it says here, the SBA within 90 days after loan may have it more or less request that at times as well. So please make sure you have that squared away. Next slide, please. The other question I get frequently is, does a company reapply for another EIDL loan, or do you increase the previous loan? Surprisingly enough, I was surprised. I thought this would increase for the second bout because of the amount of money for the Consolidated Act of the billions and billions. But unfortunately, based on the SBA, the maximum loan amount is $150,000. So if you've not applied, you can go up to $150,000. However, the SBA and the U.S. Treasury will determine your loan amount based on the financial information you provide in the portal. We've not been able to find out what information it is that you have to provide. So I know it will be financials, but what it is, hang in there. We'll all stay tuned and hopefully we'll know. But if you already had, let's say, $50,000 and you want to apply for $100,000, please make sure that you put increase in the email to this email here, PDCRE considerations at SBA.gov. I am telling my clients, please tell them why you need the money. Don't just say, hey, here it is. Make a case that this is why you need the money, blah, 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 and you'll have a better success of getting the loan approved. Next slide, please. So this is good news. This was just very frustrating because in the first time around, if you may remember, the EIDL advance was $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. Well, if you didn't put it on your PPP loan application, then you'd have to pay that back. And unfortunately, you're going to get taxed on it and all that. Now they said, hey, you can now, don't worry about it, and you'll get the money back ultimately. So what will happen is that the SBA will reconcile your amount. So if you were, supposed to have another $1,000, they will get with the bank, and then the bank should provide the funds to you. So just stay tuned. Who knows how long that will be, but just be aware that that will happen. Next slide, please. And I think that's great news. Great news that that happened. So now, this time around for the EIDL Advance Grant, it's for low-income community. And you have to suffer an economic loss of greater than 30% and employ not more than 300 employees. We're still waiting further guidance as to what the low-income community entails. So stay tuned and hopefully we'll know soon. Next slide, please. Okay, so I said earlier, the latest news as an hour ago, Monday, January 11th, the CDFIs, the Community Financial Development Institutions, the MDIs, Minority Deposit Institutions, and the CDCs, Community Development Corporations, and micro lenders could accept the first draw PPP loan applications to the SBA. Did that happen? Probably not, truthfully. I don't even know if all the banks or the lenders were accepting them. So as of yesterday, you were able to set second draw PPP loan applications for the smaller lenders of less than $1 billion. So now they're saying as of Friday, Friday, January 15th, all small lenders of less than $1 billion, and then Tuesday for all the larger lenders for first and second draws. So again, I can't stress enough to make sure that you work over the weekend, whatever, make sure that you can get all your financials ready, get your tax returns ready so that you can apply, because we don't know how long the funds will last. Will there be another tranche if we need it? Hopefully there will be, but how long it will take, I don't know. Okay, next slide, please. Quite a bit of information here, so let me just go through a summary here. Again, expanded eligibility for 501c6s. The second draw loans were added, 2 million. The second round says, okay, we have less than 300 employees, 25% decrease in quarterly annual revenue from 2019 to 20. The NAICS code for the hospitality industry is 3.5 months of eligible payroll. And the coverage period now is flexible between 8 and 24 weeks. Next slide, please. The expanded forgiveness costs include the operating expenses for property damages, supplier costs, and PPP. And the EIDL offset for the grants no longer reduces loan forgiveness. The simplified forgiveness applications are now from $75,000 to $150,000 with information retention requirements. And then hopefully SBA will continue to give us guidance on this. Next slide, please. Whew. This is a lot of information. I'm glad you hung in there, but please, we're here to help you. Ask your accountant for help. Janice is here. I'm here. You can always get additional information at the Michigan SBDC. And please note that, all the information might be subject to change on this as well. And I thank you for the pleasure of your time. So back over to you, Brianna.
Thank you so much, Julie. And you also recorded provided a ton of resources at the end of your slide. So I'll make sure that that PDF gets uploaded with the recording of this webinar to our restart page following this. So thank you, Julie. We'll have you come back for Q&A in just a little bit. Tyler,
hello.
Here you are. I'm going to get your slides pulled up here next. Tons of information. While I do that, why don't you share a little bit on how we can support with the process of applying for the resources that were just shared?
Yeah, just real quick, thank you to the SBDC for always being willing to jump on a webinar like this and share that information. What I'm excited about is that this is recorded. So every single small business in our community that is eligible for the PPP should apply for it. And this is going to be a good video resource for you to go back and take a look at all the things that Julie just covered. What we're going to talk about next is another tool, a grant, $15,000 grant, but it's much more narrow. The federal funds that Julie discussed are available for lots of businesses. This is state funds. So the Michigan Small Business Survival Grant Program was just announced this afternoon. It provides grants to eligible small businesses that were affected by COVID-19 and specifically the most recent orders that came around Thanksgiving. So the next slide gives us a little bit more about the program. Yeah, $55 million available statewide. That translates to about $1.2 million specifically for Genesee County. The maximum award is $15,000. The grant is going to focus on food service and certain recreation and exercise related businesses. So bowling alleys, great opportunity for them. CrossFit gym, great opportunity for you. Any restaurant, bar, food service related business, this is a great opportunity for you. Your eligible uses are working capital to support payroll, rent, mortgage, utilities, and costs to reopen the business. Next slide. Here's the grant qualification that was passed by the state legislature. You have to have had between 1 and 100 employees, including full-time and part-time. So if you have 10 part-time employees, that's not 5, that's 10 on a worldwide basis. So that gets to the fact that you might only have 10 in your office here in Flint, but you might have 100. There might be 10 other offices at 10 around the country. Then you wouldn't qualify for this. The industry has to demonstrate it was affected by these COVID-19 orders. So that should be pretty easy for restaurants, bars, food service related businesses that have been closed to in-person dining, obviously bowling alleys and other things that have been limited on exercise class size or their operations. You need to have a need for working capital. You can demonstrate that you lost money and that it's not a live music and entertainment venue. So there was another program set aside specifically for theaters and concert halls. That would be that business is called the Stages Survival Grant. If you have questions about that, reach out to us and we'll connect you with that. But this grant program is specifically you can't get this grant. The next slide. So what do you do? The day after Martin Luther King Day, Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, January 19th at 9 a.m., the online application is going to open. It will be open between Tuesday at 9 until Friday at noon. So I would try to get it done sooner than later. It's not on a first come, first serve, but just don't be trying to scramble on Friday to get this done before noon. In Genesee County, there will be an independent review panel that reviews all the applications, and they'll be making the decision based on some criteria. And then after that, the awardees will be notified, and they'll have to sign a grant agreement and some other things, W-9, to get the legal structures in place, and then the funds will be transferred sometime in February. The faster the applicants are ready, sign their documents, the faster we can get them the money. So that is the next step. I don't know if there's another slide. If not, nope. Boom, you're done. Let me just recap. $15,000 specifically prioritized for restaurants, bars, food service businesses, recreation businesses like a bowling alley, ice skating rink, or exercise facilities that have 50 or less employees.
Mhm. And like Tyler said, because this grant program is a much more narrow candidate pool than some of the other resources we heard about, maybe you're listening and you don't qualify, but you know another small business owner who would. We're going to be back live here again on Tuesday at 10 a.m. to go through those same few slides again. Invite them to come, ask their questions. We'll be back here live at 10 a.m. on Tuesday to talk about this. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for question and answer for our entire panel today. So I'm going to bring back Julie and Janice. Thank you, guys. Julie, you had one question come in. As a sole proprietor, do you include yourself in payroll for PPP purposes?
Yes. Yes.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Easy enough, exactly.
If you're a Schedule C filer under 1040, in order to substantiate that to the bank, then please have that ready for the bank to determine what your amount would be. So you whatever take that amount that you had for, let's say, for 2019, divide by 12 times, depending on your industry, but I would guess it's 2.5.
Great, thank you. Tyler, we had a question come through while you were speaking. They were wondering if small event and beauty management businesses would apply or qualify.
I'm confused on small event. I like a nail salon would not be a priority industry for the survival grant, but the small event piece, if you gather a significant amount of your revenue from ticket sales, you can qualify for that Stages survival grant that was also announced. So it's a little confusing in the question, but hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you. And again, we are open for question and answer at this time. So if you are viewing live on Facebook or YouTube, please put that in the comments and we are happy to help.
I would like to make a couple of comments. Appreciate everybody chiming in. I do want to reiterate the federal information is changing constantly, so be aware of that. Don't get overwhelmed. Ask for help. Your CPA is going to be a friend of yours. If you're going for PPP, make sure your banker. The program that launched the PPP-1 was a very rapid turnaround on cash to the bank. This one will be slower because they are putting some certifications in place, so it'll be a slower rollout to get the cash. So be patient. Everybody's moving at the speed of light, trying to keep up. We know the frustrations are there. Bear with us. We're all in the same ones, but we're pumping out information as quickly as we get it. I think it's really important, find out if your bank is even doing PPP loans. They have a choice to do it. Banks are still setting up their processes, and each bank is going to ask for something different because they're controlling that process. Applying for PPP-1, the end date is March 31st. Applying for PPP-2, the end date is March 31st. So very important that you're recognizing if there's still money in the program, you have to apply. We do not know if the money will run out. It's very important that you're paying attention to the deadlines and moving quickly. So Julie's advice of being prepared, getting your organizational documents in line is very important if you want to be successful.
Great, thank you, Janice. Kalfani had a question here. Where on the Chamber's website will this be posted? Thank you, Kalfani. And I'm going to go ahead and drop a link into the comments. So it's linked right here, but we have all of our on-demand webinars posted for any of the resources and programming that we promote. So you'll see that popping up in the comments in just a few minutes. And
there'll also be a link to the survival grant information there. Or you can go to michiganbusiness.org/survival or michiganbusiness.org/stages to get more information on the 2 state programs that were announced today. So you can go to our website or theirs. Yep. And Chelsea, I see that you added a little more something here. If you could email me at bmosier@flintandgenesee.org so I can get a little bit more information to you. I will find a team member internally that can help with what you're looking for exactly. So if you could just shoot me an email, that'd be great. That's good advice, Bree. Thanks for doing that. And just I'm seeing Chelsea's question here. Schedule C sole proprietors are eligible for the survival grant. It's just going to determine, it's going to matter what industry you are in. But those organizations of businesses should qualify. And as we've already heard, they also qualify for a PPP, right?
Yeah.
Julie?
That's correct. So again, as long as you have substantiation that you were in business, of course, by that time as well. And I just want to add to what Janice was saying too. Not all the banks are prepared, depending on the smaller, larger banks as well. And not all the banks are accepting the second draw or the PPP2. So just keep that in mind that you may have to go to another bank. Now, in the PowerPoint that Bree will be posting, I do have an article there that indicates that there are 8 fintech banks. I had several companies in the first draw. Oh gosh, had just a terrible time trying to get a bank in the first PPP. So it may happen again. So don't excuse the fintech banks. If you do QuickBooks and you have their services with them, you're able to get a loan through them. So just be aware of that if you're having challenges with the bank. But please don't hesitate too long. If your bank find out if your bank is accepting them, and if so, what documentation do they need, and get ready to go and ask them if it's a larger bank, then when is the portal going to become live to be able to enter that information. So again, I know it's challenging out there. I know you need the money, and I know one more stuff to go through in addition to year-end things and all that. But please, if you can set aside time over the weekend and get all this stuff done, you'll be better off.
Thank you. And Julie, while you were speaking, we had a question come in for you or Janice. Do you have to have your one PPP draw forgiven before applying for draw 2?
No.
I believe the answer to that is no. I believe I read a statement, and Julie, you can confirm this, there was a 90-day separator between the two, but it does not have to be forgiven to apply for the second one.
That's correct. As long as you tell the bank or you have intentions of using the first PPP or first draw, then you're ready to go for the second draw.
Great. And if a business receives PPP or EIDL, are they excluded from the grant and vice versa?
They are not excluded from the survival grant. You can get both. And I believe the same.
Yep. Sorry. You're not excluded from the federal programs either for a state grant. You would be if it's a federal grant. So there's, when in doubt, ask.
Mm-hmm.
And all the eligibility requirements are going to be listed on the website. So you should be able to find that. But PPP and EIDL don't disqualify you.
If you receive, if and when it ever comes out the shuttered, then you grant, then you cannot have the PPP loan.
Great.
And we're waiting on information on the shuttering grant. So if you're a venue and you're going to apply for that program that we don't have details on, you're not eligible for PPP. So there's a lot of thought that needs to be put around that for those type of businesses. But again, we do not have the information. We talked to SBA this morning. They've talked to the federal counterparts. They're working on it.
And as soon as you have it, I know you'll be ready to share. So
yep, we'll be ready to share.
Right back here with that information. Good. Okay. Well, it looks like Q&A is wrapping up. If you have questions after the fact, if you end up watching this on demand, again, you can find those on our website. It'll be here on our Facebook page and on our YouTube page on demand. Feel free to reach out to us at any time at the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce. We're here to help, as well as the team from SBDC. I'll make sure that the slides that Julie shared are uploaded so that you have a link to the PDF with all of that great information. I hope that you'll find it helpful as you apply for these resources. Tyler, Julie, Janice, anything that you guys want to share as we wrap up today?
Nope, that we're in here with you.
Yeah,
we're all fighting the game.
There's other provisions of the CAA, the employee tax credit, other things that the small debt relief program has been extended. So please feel free to contact us and we can help with you on that. So again, thank you so much for having us.
All right. Thank you guys for talking today. Thank you guys for joining us live. Again, on demand following the conclusion of this presentation. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. And we will see you back here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. again to go over the grant information that Tyler shared. So if you know a small business owner who missed out, send them back here so that they can come see it live, ask all of their questions, and we are here to help. So we'll see you next time. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.